Welcome back after the break. I hope you've had a chance to visit the expo and catch up with some of your peers here. We're going to move on to our next session. And in this session, we are going to talk about gasification for the production of future fuels. Now, with the aim to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and um, CO2 emissions, gasification methods have come to the fore. Coal or biomass have been used for energy conversions using gasification to produce heat, hydrogen, ethanol, and power successfully. Thus, the fuels of the future are likely to have a lower carbon footprint with many use cases, be it for transport, for heating, or industrial processes. Now, in this series of technical presentations, we'll cover all-round development and production of chemicals and fuels from gasification to align the multi-utility of the gasification technology. So please welcome our presenters. In this session, we will have Mr. A.N. Tiwari, EVP, Operations and Maintenance, Coal Gasification, JSPL. We'll have a presentation from Nishant Soni and Anish Kumar, Reliability Engineers at Reliance Industries. And we'll also have a presentation from Mr. Sudhakar Dawara. He's the Technology Lead at Reliance Industries Limited. Thank you all for joining us. And I'm going to start the presentation with presentations and request Mr. A.N. Tiwari, EVP, Operations and Maintenance, Coal Gasification, JSPL. Please start the presentation.
I'm there, sir. No,
Yes,
okay.
Tiwari ji, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Anisha, good morning to everybody. Let me see first to share the presentation if it is
Yeah, we
visible or
can
not.
see your screen. You can start your presentation.
You are able to see my screen. I'm not able to see my screen.
We can see your
Yeah,
screen. Maybe
but I
you
am
can
not able to
stop
see my
this.
screen. Is it
Yeah,
now?
you can just stop the sharing, go to your presentation, and then start sharing. Yes. Please go to your presentation and then start your sharing. I think that way you'll be able to start with your presentation. And till Mr. Tiwari is getting his presentation up, request to everybody in the session, if you have any questions, anything that come to your mind, please type it in. Don't wait towards the end of the session. Towards the end of the session, we will take up questions. But if
Anisha, are
questions
you
come
able
to
to?
you, please type them in. Yes,
Anish,
Tiwari, we can see your screen and you can start right away. It's full frame. Please go
so good
ahead.
morning, everybody. So my presentation, I think it will not be such a rosy pictures. It will be some critical, and I think I have 15, 16 slides. The first three slides, I'll be just telling what we have done in the last 20 months. The next three slides are totally different, not connected to the topics, but for me it was connected. So if you see the JSPL, you know that we have in Angul around 6 million ton steel capacity plants. Last year we produced 4 million ton. We have a 1.8 million ton DRI plant, and last year we produced around 0.9 million ton. We have not run the plant for almost 4 months due to the COVID, and 2 months for COVID, and 2 months we had a breakdown in our air compressor. So in 8 months we produced 0.9, and this year also we have produced around 0.77 million ton of DRI and around 3 million ton of steel so far. We have saved almost 0.95 million ton of coking coal, which can be equal to almost 200 million US dollars. We consumed around zero point 0.6 million ton of was coal last year also, and same amount by this time this year also. And raw coal consumption for last year and this year so far is around 2 million ton. These are some of the figures. In fact, the COVID was a boon for the gasification, I can say, because we could get the coal in time. We have a 7 number of gasifier, fixed bed gasifier. This is a Lurgi, supplied by the Lurgi. We commissioned the plant on 26th May 2014. Our coal requirement of was coal requirement was around 2.4 million ton per annum. Syngas capacity is 225,000 normal cubic meter per hour. The gas which we generate, our calorific values are between 3,500 to 3,700 kilocalorie per normal cubic meter. Because it's a fixed bed, so we generate around 7 byproducts. We call them the gasification oil, which we are consuming internally. Rectisol naphtha, elemental sulfur, liquid ammonia, phenol, phenolic pitch, and tar, which we are selling in the market. The major units in the coal gasification plants are gasification unit, gas cooling, gas liquor separation, phenolsolvent, ammonia recovery, rectisol, sulfur recovery, and ice handling. If you see the block diagram, we have the gasification unit. Gas is coming from the gasification unit, goes to the gas cooling, then it goes to the acid gas removal, where we are removing all the impurities. Then S2S and COS goes to the sulfur recovery for sulfur recovery. And the reduction gas, which mainly contains around 52-53% of hydrogen, 32 to 34% of carbon monoxide, and around 13% of methane goes to the DRI furnace for the reduction purpose. The liquor steam goes to the gas liquor separation, where we have a gravitational separation. We separate tar and oil. Then the remaining liquor goes to phenolsolvent, where we mix with a diisopropyl ether, and we extract the phenol. And then again we distill it to phenol and phenolic pitch. The remaining liquid goes to the ammonia, where we recover the ammonia, and then it goes to the water treatment. Then we have a RO unit, and again the water is reused. So this is what just about the brief of the JSPL. Let us look at the gasification for production of future fuels. Definitely, theoretically it is yes, it's going to be the future fuel, but practically it is doubtful. There are a lot of the difficulties, and major is the policy makers, because they wish something is, their will is different, intentions are not clear. Is my view. These views are nothing to do with the JSPLs. So I see the wish. If you see for the last 10 years, we have been always thinking of that. This is the Hindi. If somebody have seen the Dinkar ji kavita, कि यदि होता किन्नर नरेश में राजमहल में रहता सोने का सिंह. So this is the wish. We are wishing that gasification will come and it will solve for all the problems. But it's not like that. There are so many difficulties. Policy makers, they say something, they do something. There is no coordination between the ministries. For them, I can only say the Kabir Das, Mala to Karme Fire, Jeep Fire Murma, Manwa to Chaudis Fire, Yato Sumarena. They are talking for the coal gasification, 100 million ton of coal gasifications. They are talking the same time that they will have the electrical vehicle by 2013. Petrol, diesel, other fuels will be removed. They're talking to methanol and ethanol mixing also. So both are somehow contradictory statements. And focus is on the renewable energy, and today we have around 4% contribution in the power generation, and we are aiming to go to 45% in the next 1 decade. For the entrepreneurs, nobody is happy. Whenever you go, Tulsidas says, आवत ही हर से नहीं नैनन नहीं सने तुलसी तहान जाइए कंचन वर्षे में. You go to the ministry, go to that. We have been going every time, but we don't see the same welcome for them. They are talking gasification. We have the gasification, but in the last 7 years, there is no policy which can ensure that we get the fuel, we get the coal at a proper price. So that is the things. Let's go to the two sayings which you will not find on Google. They are very simple, unknown people. First one, if you don't start in time, you will miss the train. You may get better train, but not the same train at the same time. And for gasification, this is totally true. We started in 1960 in Sindri, stopped. We started again in 78, Talcher, Ramagundam. Plants were running till 2000. Government did not show any interest. Plants were closed down. So we missed the train. Today, we are again talking about the gasification when there is a solar energy. Solar power has become much cheaper compared to a decade earlier. And in the coming decades, it will be even cheaper than the power generated from the coal and other gasification routes. So now we have already missed the trains, and still we are talking about the gasification by the fluidized bed, indigenous technology. In the last session, Dr. Mukesh was telling we have to go by the technology which is available, and then we have to go for the research also. We cannot be adamant that we'll only go by the indigenous technology and then we'll develop. That is going to take a lot of the time, and by the time gasification may not be a viable source for the things. So you have to look for that. The second quote, job not done plus reasonable explanation is job not done. This is by Mr. Ravi Gilani. Ravi Gilani is the leading POC consultant in India. He is the only Indian who has been awarded by the Theory of Constraint International Certification Society. So we have not done whatever the explanation we can do, give that why gasification was not done all these years. There may be various reasons, all valid, but the fact is that gasification was not developed. Government was not keen to develop the technology, and it is not done. What we are talking today, we should have talked around 5 decades back. Coal, whether gasification will be major contributor or not, but coal will remain major contributor for the Indian fuel industry. Coal has moved from the kitchen. We have the tea shop. 30 years back, you go to any town, you can see the coal burning in the tea shops, steam engine, thermal power. Now gasification. Some part will go in gasification also. The government is talking 100 million ton of coal gasification by 2030. That's possible or not, that's difficult, but they are also planning 1 billion coal mining by the Coal India. Means 900 million ton coal will be used for some other purpose, and major will again go to the thermal power only. We are not going to stop the thermal power. So coal will remain the major source of energy for India. Whether gasification will be there or not, that's a question mark because of the many challenges in that. Gasification, you know the technology, we have the three types of major gasifiers, fixed bed, fluidized bed, and inclined bed. Gasification technologies are well established. It's not that they are very new, they are almost for the last 7, 8 decades, they are operating. Still, there are issues for the Indian coals. If you go to the synthesis gas, we are talking about the fuel. We can convert them into the hydrogen, we can convert into the SNG, we can convert into methanol, ethanol, DME, all the things, all sort of fuels can be produced, all sort of the chemicals can be produced once you convert the coal into the synthesis gas. So there is no doubt about that you can generate all the things. If you see the chain from the syngas, you can go to the fuel, you can have the combined cycle, you can run the boilers, you can run the turbines, you can do the methanation, you can generate the natural gas, you can generate hydrogens, convert into the ammonia, you can produce methanol. And methanol is the big talk today, so we'll go to methanol from next slides. Then you can go to the Fischer-Tropsch, you can generate the diesel and other fuels. See, almost a decade back, Tata and JSPL has planned for the coal to liquid. They had MOU with Lurgi and Sasol. They had their mines, but on 25th August 2014, Honorable Supreme Court gave a judgment to cancel the mines, and mines were cancelled in September 2014. And both JSPL and Tata have abandoned those projects. So now who will dare to come in that? That is a question mark again. Again, we are starting after a decade the same talk. So who will come for that? That is a doubtful. You know, syngas can be used to generate the heat and power, but the same slides here, there, you can generate in the turbine electricity. You can use them for producing hydrogen only. You can, by the water shift reaction, it can be also through the Fischer-Tropsch. You can convert into the diesel, other fuels. You can go to methanol to olefins. Then from olefins, you can have any number of products. You can even produce ethanol from this route, but the challenge is that what will be the cost of all these routes compared to the today natural gas and other things. If you do the FT synthesis plants in the world, then the Shell has a plant in 2009 commission based on the natural gas. Sasal has also on natural gas, and Qatar has based on natural gas, and only Sasal has the coal to liquid plant in South Africa, which is running for quite long time. They have developed, they have adapted the technology from the Lurgi, they made the changes, they have their own technology today, and they are the leaders, at least for coal to liquid. If you see the methanol conversion pathway, methanol is a talk of today. Everywhere methanol is there. Today, around in 2020, the methanol installed capacity was around 157 million ton, and it is expected to go to 300 million ton by 2030, and India is not considered in that. Means the methanol capacity is going to increase drastically, in the other words. So it is going to be cheaper because they are not going by coal. Most of them will be coming based on natural gas, and it will be a bigger plant, around 5,000 TPD plants. So that is a challenge. Some of the paper says that 2050 methanol will have the 500 million ton production, but 250 million tons will be the e-methanol, which is coming to the green hydrogen in electrolysis and CO2 from the renewable sources. So coal has a little role in that because everybody is trying to reduce the carbon emission. So carbon emission is a big challenge in front of the coal. Some of the challenges, if you see for the India, these are availability of and price of the coal. We are talking that we have a coal, abundant coal. We are the fourth in the world as far as coal is concerned, but in the quality wise also we are the fourth. We are sitting, it is just like a water. You have a 3/4 of the water in the world, but you don't have the water to drink. Similarly is the coal. We are sitting at the coal mines in Talcher. We don't have coal for our gasification. We don't get coal in time. We don't have linkage. The coal prices, you go to the spot auction, you get almost 100% premium. So it becomes a challenge for the coal gasification, whoever is coming. The availability and price of the coal will be a problem. Even government is talking to mines, even somebody gets the mine, it's not easy to operate the mines nowadays because it will take time. A lot of the process is involved, like acquisition, rehabilitation of the people, all those clearances are headache. They are going to take much more time, and then the cost of production of the coal again. The mines which will be allotted, you see the slide I had shown earlier, around 47% of the proven coal is there and same amount is indicated. And most of the mines which are being allotted, which is rejected by the coal India. So that is being allotted to the people. In the last allotment, I think 5 years back, whatever mines were allotted, not a single mines has operated today. So that is the difficulty. Availability of proven technology for IAS Indian coal. Technologies are available, but no technology is still proven for the Indian coal. That is true. But we have to start from somewhere. It has to be started. We have to make the changes. And then only, if you think that the first time any technology will come and it will be successful, then we are just dreaming. There will be challenges, whichever technology we bring. But the whole mission, 100 million gasification is only favor of the fluidized bed, that too developed by indigenous. So that mindset has to be changed. Disposal of ash is another challenge. We don't know what to do with the ash, high ash coal you are using. Lot of the ash will be generated and the use of ash is still not there. It needs to be addressed even by the researcher and others. Carbon emission, a big challenge. If you are going for a fuel, then it will be only combustion. Whether you make it methanol, you make it ethanol, again it will go to the vehicle, it will burn, and carbon emission will be there. So it can reduce the carbon emission, but it will not eliminate the carbon emission if you are converting coal to gasification to syngas to fuel, whether it's methanol, ethanol, any type of fuel, the carbon is going to burn finally in the vehicle and only CO2 will be emitted. And that CO2 cannot be captured. When it is coming from the vehicle, it will not be captured. So as a fuel, carbon emission will remain a challenge. Cost of coal-based products, whatever we are going to produce, the methanol, we are talking about mostly about the methanol. Methanol is one of the commodity which prices changes from 20 rupees kg to 40 rupees kg every year. Other challenge in the methanol, at least for the Odisha, I tell you, we buy the methanol for our acid gas removal. We pay 20 rupees per kg tax to the government, which are not refundable. 7 rupees goes for the transportation duty and 9 rupees per liter goes for the excise duty. The methanol is a commodity which is covered under the Poison Act. So when it is crossing a border, it is escorted by excise police. It will come up to the gate, they will hand over to you, and then you will take it. So this is a big challenge for the methanol. Who is going to buy? Who is going to pay all these things? So these are the things where the government is not looking. This is a revenue for the government. Suddenly they stop, then that is also a revenue problem for them. Logistics. Neither you can transport the coal to the area where consumption of fuel is high, nor you can transport the methanol. So you have to see, you have to put the plant near the coal mines, then the transportation of the products, logistics is still, there is a big challenge for the India. Logistics is there. High capex and opex. The coal-based plants, the capex is very high. Operating cost is also high because we are handling a lot of the solid things. So solid handling has big challenges. So cost of OPEX and CAPEX is there. Though all researchers yesterday, everybody discussed that we want to reduce the CAPEX by bringing the indigenous technology. But how much? How much they will bring down, that is a challenge. Other is uncertain policies. Today, government is very keen on that. Government is trying to bring some policies, but in the India, I'm sorry to say, but where the national agenda is secondary to the political agenda for the parties. If the government changes, who knows? The policies today which are prepared will continue there or not. So that is a challenge. And the basis for saying is that the mines which were cancelled were allotted by some government earlier also. So there was a policy, mines were allotted, the companies made the investments. We have invested almost 100 of crores in study for the CTL and other things. Mines were cancelled. We constructed our DRI plant before the blast furnace, and the day we commissioned, within 2 months, mines were cancelled. So they were also allotted based on some policy, but the policy did not remain. So we compare with the China. China has single policy, no democracy. So whatever they say, that is continuing. So that policy is again a challenge. We may be very happy with today policy and other things, but we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. How they will ensure that whatever policy is met today will remain valid for the 30 years. If it is not there, who is going to invest the money? Availability of finance. Who will give you the loan? The loan is not only a cheaper rate, because gasification is a new area, not a proven area. So getting loan, getting finance is a problem. Capex is high capex. And who will put the money? Government has to put their own money for that. Of course, today Air Product is ready to put the plant on the BOO basis. They are ready to invest. That's a good sign. But again, their BOO basis cost of the gas will be linked to the coal price, steam price, power price. And those things are still uncertain. What will be the price of the coal? Then competition. When I coming as a fuel, then there is a competition with the renewable energy sources and other fuels like oil, gas. So that challenge will be there. Price of fuel from the coal will remain high. Who will pay? The country where you are generate the power, political reasons, they will give the free power to the people, farmers, others for the vote bank. So who will pay for that? Who will invest the money? There's a lot of the money of the power generators are not paid in the time. They have the PPA, but they don't get the money in the time because governments are not paying to them. So high cost, that will be challenge unless the customers are ready to pay. That will be a challenge. Wastewater management, there will be water management, which is again a challenge. More with the fixed bed. Another bed also there will be some water management. Thing is the fabrication of equipment. Nobody is fabricating the gasifiers in India other than the L&T. You're thinking 100 million tons plant. If suppose the 4 or 5 project comes, who is going to do this fabrication to complete the project in the time? We're not thinking in that area. These challenges are the practical challenges where we are not looking to it. We are only looking at the policy and all goody things that it will change the future of India. So the same challenges here see the quality of coal, as I told, it's a very low rank coal. So if you do the washing and other things, it's again a cost. If you don't do the washing, definitely there will be a problem. Though many technology supplier today telling that they can run 45-47% as, but I am sure the moment as goes beyond 30%, the reliability, availability of the equipment will drastically fall, and it's a challenge. Higher the as, higher the energy consumption, higher the maintenance cost, and it will be a big challenge. Availability of coal, as we have already discussed, Coal India, we recently, I think 2 days back, their statement, the chairman of Coal India was telling this is the time to increase the coal prices. So they are in the business of that. Why they will reduce the price? They are selling, they are water by selling 100 ton, if they can earn the money for the 200 ton, what interest they have to reduce the price? And how the government will force, because everybody is a profit center for government also. So that is a challenge. Capital requirement, we have already discussed. Major is the fuel where we are talking methanol and ethanol. Then we have to see how the vehicle engines will be designed. Up to 15%, 20% we can mix in the fuels, but you want to run the vehicle 100% methanol and 100% ethanol, then vehicle engines has to be designed for that. And today when the world is moving for the electrical vehicles, who will invest for the designing of these engines and how long it will be viable? So that is a other challenge because we don't have the vehicles where you can use the 100% methanol and ethanol. So that challenge will be always there. There is a need for the government also. Government need to support it honestly because it's not there the first time. There will be challenges. There will be the carbon emission. There will be pollution challenges. There will be the payload challenges. See, yesterday Mr. Thomas Matthew was telling they had 10 gasifiers and they are still not able to run more than 6 gasifiers at a time. They commissioned their plant in December 2018 and for the 2 years they struggled. It was only Reliance who could survive because they have brought all the companies, all the experts from the world for their gasification plant. Who can afford that much? Nobody can afford. So that challenge is there. Project time, we say it's a 48 months time, but you see the Talcher projects. The consortium was made in 2015. RCF, GAIL, Coal India is involved. Land was readily available, water was readily available. Still the plant is not commissioned. The mines, Arcapal, which was allotted for them, now that mine is not with them because now they say that coal cannot be gasified. So when they declared, when they selected the technology, they told Arcapal is coal mines, which will give the coal to the Talcher. Now they are looking for some other mines. So that is there. And if you look at the coal consumption and other things for the project, they will be consuming 7,572 metric ton of coal per day for 2,200 metric ton of ammonia per day and 1,000 metric ton of pet coke. If you convert them into the energy, that will be more than 10 gigacalorie per ton of ammonia. And today ammonia is produced with 6.5 gigacalorie by natural gas route. So how they are going to compete with that? What government is planning to face this? And we are operating, at least I have been in 22 years in the gasification, initial 13 years at Ramagundam and last 8 years with the Jindals. We know we were producing with high energy consumptions and we were closed down. The same situation is today also. The energy consumption is almost 50%, 60% higher than what is consumed by the natural gas. So these are the major challenges for that. And what are the remedy for that? It's not known. Thank you. So I think it was not a very pleasant. So any questions? There.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fari, for your presentation. Now, there are a few questions that have come in, and we will take them up towards the end of the session. But
Sure.
we have more presentations coming in, and let's invite our next set of speakers, Nishank Soni and Anish Kumar, reliability engineers of Reliance Industries, who will bring us their next presentation. Anish and Nishank, it's over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Before starting our session, I would like to confirm that I guess my slide is visible. My screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, we can see your screen. We can hear you. You can go full screen and start.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank to Tiwari ji for the presentation on gasification and potential of gasification and challenges what they are facing, because it has made the environment, or it has made the atmosphere for which our next session is based on. In this presentation, we are making an attempt to unlock the opportunity in adversity that has been prevailing in gasification plant. Yes, our today's presentation is based on asset integrity management and inspection philosophy for gasification complex. This presentation I will be discussing along with my colleague, Mr. Anish Kumar. We both are looking after in asset integrity related activities in gasification plant situated at Reliance Industries Limited, Jamnagar. Prior to going into the slide, I would like to discuss discuss briefly about our company, that is Reliance Industries. Now, Reliance Industry is an Indian conglomeration, and it has legacy to make their policy considering India in its center. Yes, Reliance is a company which is made in India, made for India, and made by India. All the policy, all the products, and what all initiative taken by Reliance has been considered by considering India and Indian people into the center. And because of this, today Reliance is affecting at least entire population of India directly or indirectly in each day. In addition to this, the Reliance is having legacy for creating value for their investor. Reliance business spanning from digital, oil, energy, and retail sector. Over a period of time, the Reliance has witnessed a paradigm shift from their core energy segment to a conglomeration of energy and other sector. And as on today, financial year 2020, the
Nishank,
overall
you can make the full screen. You can press the F5 and you can make the full screen. Press F5 in your laptop, it will be full screen.
From where?
F5.
F5. I think it is full screen only.
Full screen, please go ahead.
Okay. Till today, in financial year 2020, the overall income consists of 35% from consumable and remaining 65% from energy and other sectors. As we all know, Reliance is also one of the pioneer in creating wealth for their investors. Here are some of the stellar performance and superlative figures. And with this, I would like to start on our today's discussion. Here is the outline of our today's presentation. We will be discussing about introduction of gasification plant. Then we will try to compare gasification plant with other refinery and petrochemical plant. We will discuss about plant integrity assurance management system concept. We will identify few critical damage mechanism prevailing in gasification plant. We will discuss about pilot implementation or way for implementing PIAM and development of inspection strategy. And finally, we will conclude our session by discussing a case study in which we will share a brief about one of the eventuality that may occur in any of the gasification plant. As we all people belongs to a common fraternity, gasification is not unknown to anyone. But still, as a matter of this presentation, I would like to give a brief discussion about gasification plant. In gasification plant, we are preparing a slurry by mixing a carbonaceous material. It can be coal or petcoke. It is mixed with limestone or any other catalyst to reduce the temperature, and it is mixed with the water in slurry preparation unit, and all the solid and liquid mass is come into a semi-liquid, semi-solid consistency. It is fed and partially burned into gasification reactor. The oxygen for burning or partial combustion is being fed from ASU unit. Outcome of any gasification plant is HHP steam, which is used for heating and other purpose. Syngas, as we all know, syngas is having its own energy value and accordingly commercial value. Hydrogen, other precious materials such as vanadium, and in addition to this, we can also extract some carbon-based product which is used for other industry. Moving to our next topic, why gasification plant is different, or why we are facing so much challenges in running gasification plant or maintaining the integrity of all the assets. In this and coming slide, we have made an attempt to identify some of the basic difference from refinery and other petrochemical plant or complex. The first thing is characteristics of feed. In the case of refinery or any petrochemical plant, the feedstock which is being processed is either in semi-liquid, either in liquid or in gaseous form, whereas in the case of gasification plant, it is semi-liquid. So there are certain damage mechanism which has been activated based on phase of feedstock. Secondly, in petcoke based gasification plant, we are processing the refinery residue. Refinery residue are nothing but a combination of higher molecular weight chain which has to be broken. And in order to unlock the business opportunities, many a time a variety of crude has been processed, and accordingly the feed is inconsistent with respect to its quality, with respect to its carbon percentage and other impurities. So feed characteristic is the distinction or demarcation point. Second thing is, in gasification plant, the gasification reaction occurs at high temperature, high pressure, and in entire plant circuit, toxic material are involved. As we all know, in any of the refinery unit or petrochemical unit, either presence of high temperature along with low pressure or low toxicity material, or low temperature, low pressure with high toxicity material are prevailing. But in the case of gasification plant, gasification reaction occurs at a temperature around 900 to 1600 degrees centigrade, depending on the process we selected. Gasification reaction occurs at a very high temperature, and syngas is very toxic in nature. So all the three critical variables are simultaneously present and any loss in any of the circuit will have a very severe health and safety related consequences. Third point, third demarcation thing is active damage mechanism. In the case of gasification, all major damage mechanisms such as corrosion, erosion, thermal fatigue, presence of chlorine, presence of hydrogen and sulfur are active, and many a time they interact with each other and forms a novel way of forms a novel way from damage which has neither been studied nor been forecasted. So presence of active damage mechanism makes gasification very challenging and tricky plant to operate. Apart from this, the proven material, unavailability of proven material is also a big concern. Typically, gasification reaction occurs in Typically, gasification reaction occur at temperature approaching to or higher than lower critical temperature of any material. And at and as on today, there are very few materials which are available which can support or hold a containment at this temperature. Then scarcity of technical know-how, behavior of material in harsh environment, and interaction of various damage mechanisms at prevailing condition are very limited. And because of this, it is established to define a consistent integrity operating window, which is usually seen in refinery or petrochemical plant, is not possible. So scarcity of technical know-how is also one of the biggest challenge that any gasification plant is facing today. And last and the most important thing is the consequences of any failure will lead to containment loss, and syngas by nature is very toxic and it is also explosive, so it will have a very severe socio-economical consequences. Because of considering all the parameters, the gasification plant is entirely different than plant any refinery and petrochemical plant, and accordingly the integrity management is very crucial. In this slide, we are going to discuss about the concept of plant integrity and management system, which is also known as PIAM. PIAM is nothing but a systematic approach for identifying potential damage mechanism based on probability of failure and its consequences. PIM also provides the inspection method, its monitoring location, inspection frequency, and extent to which the inspection is to be done. The first stage of devising any PIAM is to identify a corrosion loop. Anyone will have a doubt that what is corrosion loop? The corrosion loop is nothing but it is a portion of any of plant feed circuit wherein all the piping and connecting equipment are scrutinized based on similarity in process condition such as processing environment, temperature, pressure, based, based on active damage mechanism, and sometimes based on metallurgy. So entire plant is broken into each of the corrosion loop. Then each of the corrosion loop is been analyzed with respect to active damage mechanism into it. Secondly, it has been identified based on it is been weighted based on probability of failure, and it is ranked with respect to consequence of failure. Before discussing the picture that you show on your right hand side, I would like to take you to the next slide, how the consequence of failure are being classified. Depending on the severity or the consequences, each of the corrosion loop has been divided or assigned any of the category level. It can be very low, which is having a least consequences or with least effect to the plant operation, to the very high, which needs a event specific plan and it is having a higher threat to plant operation and personal safety. So each identified corrosion loop has been assigned a particular category level, and it has been assigned probability of failure based on past event, based on past experience and inspection observation and predicted failure rate. Once the probability and consequence of failure has been assigned, the zone of each corrosion loop has been identified based on this 5x5 matrix. Here you can see that based on consequence of failure, A stands for a very low and E stands for very high. Similarly, probability 1 stands for very least probability and 5 stands for very high probability. Based on this, each corrosion loop has been assigned a particular severity rating, and based on severity rating, each of the corrosion loop has been provided or assigned with a particular inspection plan and inspection frequency. In this slide, we will be discussing about what parameters are to be considered while deciding the inspection frequency. There are many of the different parameters that are to be considered. Some of them are listed here. First of all, operating condition. If the operating condition, if any person who is devising a PIAM and if he feels that operating condition is very harsh, then inspection frequency may be increased or may be reduced. Then physiochemical characteristic of process stream and operating environment. Many a time, based on process licensor recommendation or manufacturer's recommendation, the frequency are decided. Sometimes statutory requirement makes it a mandate to have a stringent inspection frequency, and so on. Here, I would like to accentuate one particular thing, that is the risk-based inspection criteria. Risk-based inspection is one of the novel or recently evolved approach in maintaining plant integrity. Risk-based design is also a very important concept, and many a time inspection frequency are being identified based on risk-based inspection criteria. Once the PIAM has been structured, then we have identified each of the corrosion loop. Then we have assigned a consequence analysis and severity matrix to severity rank to each of the corrosion loop. Now we will go into the implementation phase of any PIAM. Before implementing PIAM, first and the foremost thing that we need to do is identify the baseline thickness mapping on each of the identified loop, piping and its component, and it is stored for future reference. This will serve as a basis to anticipate or predict corrosion rate and severity of anticipated damage. Second important point is we need to establish a robust system for online monitoring. It can be done by a means of instrumentation intervention, by providing a temperature gauge, pressure gauge, or by considering by providing a thickness check. And this outcome of this online monitoring or periodic monitoring is done for periodic interval. And based on the observation, immediate examination intervention may be suggested. Say for example, at a particular location, if any of the instrument reads a higher temperature, then a high temperature thermography may be suggested. Many a time, selecting the immediate examination intervention or NDT is based on the damage mechanism associated. Say for example, if we are supposing or if we are expecting a high temperature hydrogen attack damage is to expect, then either PAUT and or RT may be suggested. Based on the result of our preliminary examination, the further NDT or may be suggested, or based on this inspection program may be modified. Many a time it may happen that operating parameter may require to alter. The operating parameter with respect to addition of any corrosion inhibitor or addition of any material which reduce the activity of specific chemical species or lesser processing temperature or pressure may be advocated. And if required, material upgradation may also be suggested. Now, I would like to request my colleague, Mr. Anish Kumar, to take this session further. Over to you, Anish.
Thanks, Nishank. Hope I am audible.
Yes, Anish.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Nishank. Now taking this forward into the slides. Following are the few main loops which we'll discuss now. The first one is slurry loop. This loop includes all equipment, storage tanks, and piping used in mixing of different elements of it together to prepare semi-solid slurry and transfer that slurry into the reactor. In the reactor loop, containing main reactor in which all the exothermic reaction is taking place to produce syngas and other gases as well. This is the area where temperature and pressure are very high and which makes this very different from other critical loops. That third corrosion loop is syngas loop. This loop containing immediate downstream of gasifier reactor up to the steam generator, and hot syngas enter in this loop cools significantly, and minute solid particles present in the syngas get filtered as it flows through a sintered metal fibers. The last one is slag loop. This loop contains piping and some special equipment carrying slag from reactor bottom to tanks and other slag handling equipment. Subsequently, into the downstream, carbon recovery equipment is also installed, which recovers carbon through a physical separation process and recycle it back to gasifier reactor through slurry preparation. Moving to next slide. In this slide, we will discuss about the critical damage mechanism into the gasifier plant. As per respective service condition and methodology used, loop-wise specific damage mechanism is taken here against the each corrosion loop. For the slurry, due to presence of solid particles into the semi-liquid slurry and further high velocity of slurry leads to corrosion damage. Other chemically active elements like sulfur also changed to sulfide lead to further degradation. This may cause significant erosion as well as wet stress corrosion. The next one is the loop. In this loop, complete hot gas paths are made up of alloy steel with internal refractory lining for erosion and temperature resistance. Any damage like erosion, STHA, sulfidation will be occurring only if internal reactor and protective internal coating gets damaged. Moving to next loop, syngas loop. Since this syngas is cooled significantly and solid particles are sieved away except erosion, uh, uh, all the other remaining damage mechanism will be same as the reactor loop, and it will also remain active into the piping and equipment of this particular loop. For the slag loop, since slag loop contains water with solid slag particles, erosion will be the only active damage mechanism. Moving to next. In this slide, we will briefly discuss about each of these damage mechanisms we have just discussed. The first one is erosion. Erosion is nothing but a mechanical removal of surface material as a result of movement of a process fluid, which may be in form of solid, liquid, or vapor, or combination of all those. Now, the second one is S2S, corrosion. In this case, 1 minute. Okay. Full screen. Yeah. Yeah. In this case, damage occurs in four different forms, which are hydrogen blistering, hydrogen induced cracking, stress-oriented hydrogen-induced cracking, and sulfide stress cracking. These all damage are very related to the hardness of that particular material, and the hardness value of that particular material is very important with respect to the occurrence of all these damage mechanism. The third one is STHA, which is known as high temperature hydrogen attack. In this case, hydrogen diffused into the steel react with carbide to form CH4, which ultimately cannot be diffused out and ultimately leads to the loss of strength, and as well as the generation of lamination at advanced stages. Next slide, please. The next one is sulfidation. It is nothing but a formation and continuous removal of iron sulfide film, leading to gradual thinning of component, ultimately leading to catastrophic failure. The next one is temper embrittlement. This is a migration of TRAMP element towards grain boundary at the microstructure level, which ultimately results in loss of impact toughness, and materials suffer shift from ductile to brittle transition, and which ultimately leads to brittle fracture. And this is only happening during the startup or shutdown of any system. A chromium and moly family steel is highly prone to this type of degradation. Next, please. Yeah, in this slide, we will be discussing about the implementation of PIM in gasification plant. So, as per respective, so till now, we have discussed about the corrosion loop, active damage mechanism, and finalized inspection frequency. Based on consequences analysis, so here our detailed inspection plan is ready to be implemented, and same we will discuss it now. The first one is slurry loop. This lies under a medium risk loop because any leakages or any damage leads to only plant upset, and it can be repaired or restored only by the blinding any equipment in this loop. The second loop is reactor loop. This loop lies under very high risk because it will be having severe health and environmental consequences if there is a loss of containment, and the recommendation will be visual inspection and maintaining syngas velocity within limit. Monitoring thickness after a particular or defined interval at strategic location will be also good for this loop. Carrying out POUT in this loop will be also very significant, as it can capture any subsurface defects. The next loop is syngas loop. In this loop, it is same like reactor loop. All the active damage mechanism and recommendation is will be same as like reactor loop. In slag loop, which falls under medium risk, the active damage mechanism will be erosion, and recommendation will be to performing visual inspection, controlling flow velocity, and monitoring thickness after a predefined interval at a strategic location. Next. Now here we will discuss one of the case study to manage hotspot management. So any structured PIM also used for mitigating unplanned event such as hotspot. Before moving forward, let me discuss what is hotspot. In any gasification reactor, temperature observed to be more than 1000 degrees centigrade, and at this temperature, no known engineering material is proven. So all the gasification reactor are lined with refractory lining from inside. Whenever refractory lining get damaged, that portion of reactor experiences very high temperature, which ultimately leads to degradation of metallurgical and mechanical properties of that particular material. Since damage of internal lining is sensed from outside by measuring temperature difference of hot zone and relatively cold zone, so and which is identified as a hot spot. In hot spot, material temperature is as high as lower critical temperature of that particular material, which leads to loss of mechanical properties and increase in chances of brittle fracture. This is the reason why hotspots are considered as a very, very critical with respect to the equipment or any piping integrity. As we know, the severity of active damage mechanism increases exponentially with temperature. So in area near hotspot, applicable damage mechanism act aggressively, and sometimes multiple damage mechanism may start interacting with each other. In this case also, PIM helps in identifying interaction of those damage mechanism. Moving to next slide. In this slide, we will discuss about the steps which is needs to be followed to manage hotspot. After taking safe shutdown, we have to map the hotspot area very accurately and carry out visual inspection from either side, from ID side and from OD side also, to check any bulging or any deformation in the metal surface. After that, we will carry out a fluorescent MPT, which is very ideal entity to examine any surface crack propagation. And after that, we'll go and do hardness test, which is also an ideal entity process to check any changes or any degradation in mechanical properties of that exposed part. The fifth one is in situ metallography. It is a tool to check if there's any changes in the microstructure of that specific element, which ultimately leads to more degraded part. And in case of any susceptible findings, further investigation like destructive testing or fit for service analysis will be carried out in accordance with the part 11 of API 579. Now, with this, we have come to the conclusion of today's discussion. PIM is a collective efforts from inspection and operation team, because for identifying prevailing damage mechanism and inputs from operation team is very, very important. Developing PIM needs thorough knowledge of process as well as inspection technique and metallurgical behavior of that particular material. Accurate input data such as feed recipe, process temperature, and pressure and other parameter plays a vital role in this. So accuracy of data is very important for developing effective inspection plan and maintaining plant integrity. PIM is uniquely based on experience, inspection observation, and it is a ever revising document, and it also centered on continual improvement concept. PIM also helps in accommodating change of feed recipe and process parameters, as all the associated damage mechanism and inspection observation are well documented, and it helps in taking crucial decisions also. If required, we may recommend additional inspection intervention as well as a last option. This helps in achieving dynamic business requirement as well. And this is how PIM is considered as an effective tool for managing integrity and profitability of any gasification plant. Thanks. That's all from our side. If you guys have any question, please ask me.
Yes, we will take up the questions towards the end. For now, I would like to request Mr. Sudhakar Davarak, Technical Lead, Reliance Industries Limited, to please give us his presentation as well. Sudhakar ji, you can go ahead and share your screen, sir.
Yes, yes, Anisha, thank you. I'm just trying to share my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen and we can hear you loud and clear. You can just maximize and go ahead. Over to you.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. We can see the screen. We can hear you clearly.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Sudhakar. I'm working in Center of Excellence for Gasification in Reliance. And it's already a very long session, and I will set my presentation in a different way. Let me start like Mr. Tiwari has set the tune in a different way. I would say that it depends on how you look at that. You must have heard about this analogy of glass is half empty and half full. So the gasification, you have to look in the same way. You can look at all the problems, or you can look at like you are here to solve these problems. For example, like carbon is definitely a problem in these scenario, and it depends. Like you see the carbon into the CO2, or whether you see that carbon you can lock in the chemicals and you have huge potentials. It depends on way you look at it. Another example, he said like everybody is talking about this solar, but how long we are working in solar? Solar was started way back in 1990. And in fact, in 2004 and 5, everybody in India also was talking about solar. In fact, in Reliance also, we had a separate vertical for solar, and we had to shut down that vertical. And then again, we are talking about this solar. So things in a technological environment, sometimes things take they take time, and the technology gets takes a little more time to mature, and then you get the benefit out of it. I do agree that Mr. Tiwari, like yes, gasification is a wild animal, and we take proud that we have understood how to tame this wild animal. As on today, I'll give you the update. Today we are running 6 gasifiers. As you know, that is the world's largest gasifiers. And yesterday we produced 35 tons per hour of hydrogen, which is equivalent to more than 800 tons per day for the entire refinery production. And we are making close to 700 tons per hour of syngas, which is going for the steam and power applications. So in terms of total, we are making close to 1200 tons per hour as on date, and which is equivalent to 10 mmSCMD NG equivalent gas. So it's not a little quantity. I will not talk about, because already Anish and Nishank, my colleague from Jamnagar, they have covered Reliance overview. So like you need to see that gasification in a unique perspective. It's not you cannot see gasification is in isolation. So we need to give a lot of stress on the integration, the way we have done it. So what we want to do, like we have huge complex at Jamnagar, 2 mega refineries. We have one big ROGC complex, and we have integrated our gasification with this. So the way what we have done is we have completely insulated our refinery, the huge, we call it a super site, from the price volatility. You must be knowing that LNG prices, like maybe 3-4 months back, they were maybe $5 to $6 per MMBTU. But look at the today's price; it is more than $30 per MMBTU. So you don't know like where the market will go. So we have to insulate that our operating cost from this volatility. And then we want to extract this natural gas delta between like what we have this bottom product, which is pet coke. And look at like we should say like we feel proud that who in the world is gasifying the pet coke? We are the only company. We are the only company in India. Like we are gasifying a huge amount of pet coke. In terms of, if you look at close to 10,000 tons, more than 10,000 tons per day pet coke we are gasifying. If you look at in the terms of annual, close to 80 million tons of pet coke we are gasifying throughout of gasifiers, and we are generating a lot of syngas in terms of MMSCMD NG equivalent. So, and with this integration, we have released our off gases, which have very key feedstock, and we are giving it for that more chemical application, and we have put up this ROGC cracker. We call it a refinery off gas cracker. So basically, we have transformed our refinery completely bottomless. There is no bottom product, and it has become a bottomless refinery. Now, the uniqueness of the gasification, I'll take maybe just 1 minute. Like we see what is our feedstock? We are taking pet coke. Pet coke is the bottom product of the refinery. We can call it as a waste product of the refinery of any plant. Then to have a proper fluxing, we are using fly ash. Fly ash is another waste product of another power plant. So we are handling 2 waste products from 2 different industry, and we have to run a very consistent gasifier operation. So this is the uniqueness. This is the challenge, and we happily feel that we have overcome this challenge. Yes, Mr. Thomas Matthew talked about like we are running only 6 gasifier, but this is the reality, and we have to look at like this gasification cannot run the way we are running our petrochemical or refinery, where we have this 99% availability all the time. So it took us time to understand like gasification, as told in the beginning, it's a wild animal. So it will not work. It will not behave the way refinery behaves. We have understood we have, and which gasifier plant in the world has given this kind of availability in the first 2 years, 3 years operations. We are already at 60% availability, and we are very, very confident that very soon we'll reach 70%, 80% availability, maybe in coming 6 months time or 1 year time. So this is, I've already spoken about the complexity and the integration. So we have 2 big refinery. We call it a domestic tariff area refinery and the SEZ refinery, specific economic zone refinery. And accordingly, we have set up one gasification plant in DTA, other in SEZ. Then here is my refinery off gas cracker complex. It looks like a very simple scheme, but if you come to Jamnagar and look at the scale, it's a very, very complex and integrated complex, and which gives us the benefit in terms of the significant cost advantage. This is our block flow diagram. As we have two setup of gasifiers, 4 in DTA, 6 in SEZ, and to supply the oxygen, we have a separate air separation unit, and in DTA as well as in SEZ. You must be knowing that we have already presented many times. All these plants are world largest plants, world largest air separation unit, 5,250 tons per day air separation unit. And you must have seen that in second COVID wave, from these ASU, we had supplied more than 1,000 tons per day liquid oxygen to when the country needs that liquid oxygen supply from us. Then we have this OGBL units. We call it outside gasification battery limits. And here we process this gas, and then we make 3 products. We make hydrogen, and we are proud, like currently the entire hydrogen is supplied from the Petcoke gasification unit, and there is no SMR based hydrogen is running in the refinery. We have shut down all this SMR plant, and we have syngas for fuel and power application. And I will talk to in my coming slides, like what are the plans, as I told in the beginning, like how to capture this CO molecules. Like once we have these CO molecules in terms of carbon, how to convert into that in the chemical application. This is the way, like all BESS licensor and the EPC contractor were were the partners of this journey with us. As everybody is knowing that we have gone for this e-gas gasifier, and it's a unique gasifier. Like we have 2 stage. One is first stage with the slurry and oxygen. And second is we are putting slurry without oxygen to utilize that heat from the first stage, and that gives us the unique advantage. And here I would like to stress upon, like this e-gas plant. We had a similar e-gas plant in China, and which is a company called Sinopec. And we are proud that based on our experience, we did not care for that intellectual property rights, and we had advised them, we had given the technical know-how to them, and now they are running their plant with 60% petcoke and coal blend, because their plant was designed for 100% coal. They were not able to stabilize the plant, and we had a technical exchange program with them, and they finally running their gasifier with 60% petcoke and 40% coal, and we feel very proud of that. Second thing is one information I wanted to give, like this plant was designed based on licensor. Licensor has changed multiple times. It was initially, when we signed the contract, was ConocoPhillips. It became Phillips 66. Then it became CB&I. It became McDermott. Now it's called Lummus. So this plant was there in Wabash in USA, in Indiana, and that plant is now, it was shut down in 2016, mothballed, and now again they're restarting that plant. And then they are converting that plant into a blue hydrogen, because we have advantage of gasification, like all the CO2 stream is available in terms of a pure CO2. So they are using that CO2 as a sequestration, and they're converting the entire syngas into hydrogen, and that will be used for the mobility application, and they call it a blue hydrogen. It's not like gasification is going away from because of these CO2 issues. We need to understand, like what are the innovation required to continue working in the right direction. So this is our commissioning journey. The first plant was commissioned, as in every plant, steam and flare, in October 17. The first gasifier in December 17. The 10th gasifier commissioned in March 19. So we took only less than 15 months to commission these 10 large gasifiers. And by June 19, we were very, very, very stable operations. And we in fact achieved by January 20. I don't think so. Like you'll have the example of anywhere in the world, the slurry gasifier is operating more than 100 days on a continuous run, and we have many more than 10 runs where we have run more than 100 days. But of course, we have optimized to get the best out of the gasifiers. So we are optimizing the run length so that we can minimize that downtime. So that this is the way we are operating. But we are proud that we have achieved this 100 days run length in many gasifiers. Here, like this journey, as Mr. Tiwari mentioned, that it's not easy, and we had, as everybody in the gasification plant, so we have a lot of challenges. Like we had, in fact, starting from that first point, we had challenges from the feed flux management. We had challenges in controlling the slurry quality. Like we had this slurry storage. Like we had a lot of issues in the storage, because when we talk slurry, it's a misnomer. It's not a slurry actually. It's a 60 to 65% concentration, and it's almost like a paste. The viscosity values in the range of 100 to 1000 cp. So basically, it's a paste, and we have to push it. We had a lot of issues in the storage tank. We need to redesign the baffles. We need to redesign that the way we have to operate the agitator. So many things were done. Then it's a entrain flow gasifiers, as everybody knows that many ash particles will get entrained into the syngas, and we have these deposition issues in the hot gas path in terms of second stage. And we have a lot of issues in because we have gone for the syngas cooler design. It's not a total quench design. We have a lot of deposition issues in syngas cooler. Now, of course, we had many issues in char filter. We have overcome that. We have redesigned the metallurgy, that filtration rating, and a lot of studies were done, and now we have come out of that. And I'm happy to inform that now our char filter run length has gone as high as 300 days on slurry operations. We had little issues in the carbon recovery package, because initially our carbon conversion was not right. A lot of carbon was getting into that stream. We have sorted this out based on my gasification temperature and other optimization. So I'll just give you a little more view on this. As I told you that we have two first stage mixers, we have two second stage mixers. If we look from this point at the top, and this is the second stage. Here you can see on the left side the pictures. These are the kind of deposition we have in this hot gas path. And this is the first two pictures. You can see that it's a good operation. Like after 65, 70, 100 days operation, if we have this kind of deposition, we are happy. But sometimes if operation is not correct, if we have some issues in this managing the feed flux, or maybe some flow dynamics issues, we sometimes have complete blockage of the second stage. You can see in the down picture, almost 100% cross section area is blocked. In the right side picture, it's my syngas cooler. You can see that my cooler tube, there are a lot of deposition happens in these tubes, because we are dealing with this ash particles. And once deposition happens, then the whatever flow, this my syngas with the solids which is coming through this hot gas path, entering into the syngas, if it is going straight into the tubes, we don't have any problem. But after this deposition, this flow is not straight. It's hitting into that any angle, whatever possible, into these tubes, and that erodes the tubes. So this is our big concern. And here, like all my colleagues, this Nishank, everybody is busy on this inspection, because this gasifier, we have 10 gasifiers. All the time, some gasifier is shut down, and a lot of inspection, and then repair is required. So here, this maintenance team is, I would say, there's an excellent team what we have at Jamnagar. So what all we have done? We have done in the last 2.5 years. I would say that for any engineering background guy, it's a paradise. Gasification operation and working in gasification is a paradise for learning. And we move away from this petcoke, limestone, and fly ash we move to petcoke, limestone, and coal operations for better reliability and operability. Then to optimize our mill operations, we have gone for pre-installing the crusher, so that I have a good control over my feed size. We had little issues of the availability and reliability in the storage tank and the rod mills. What we have done is it was not there by design. We have completely interlinked all these sections. We have taken a lot of additives, so that I have a very stable slurry. Then there are a lot of modification done in the rod mill in terms of my throughput, in terms of my rod distribution, in terms of my rod weight. A lot of optimization done in the rod mill side. We have optimized our gasifier temperature, so that I have a good refractory life and good carbon conversion. So all this is very critical. And the outlet gasifier second stage outlet temperature, and then downstream how to control the temperature, so that my ash behavior is not in a sticky range. So that also is a very critical thing. And Of course, we took some time, but now we understand in a much better way that we have hold a good expertise on that. As I told you that like we have worked extensively on char filter, and we have developed many vendors, and now we have a multiple choice. Now we can have a good filter life. The last point is which is the most critical point, is the way you monitor your gasifier temperature, because in such a hostile environment, any thermocouple will not stand. So direct or indirect measurement in terms of like how much ash is flowing out of my gasifier bottom and how much is getting collected into the dewatering tank. Based on that, if my dewatering tank is filling very fast or low, based on that we calculate like how I'm operating, like it's on a higher side or the lower side. Then we have a heat balance. On that we have done that for temperature measurement. And how did we complete all these activities? As Mr. Tiwari was also mentioning that it's not easy. Only Reliance can handle all kind of expertise from the world. Definitely, we went to each and every nook and corner of the world where gasification expertise reside. And in terms of engineering companies, we had taken consulting from Fluor, Bechtel, Hualu from China. As he said, China is the hub for the gasification. Hundreds of gasifiers running on coal gasification. So we have definitely taken help from China. We have gone to the many universities for fundamental understanding of the inorganic behavior, because we didn't have this inorganic into our manufacturing domain. So we have built these capabilities. We have good relation with Penn State University in US, Kenmet Energy in Canada, and this IEC. You must have heard one presentation from IEC, Professor Mayer, yesterday. We had a very good relation with them. Then subject matter experts, we had because we are very comfortable with all the simulation software, whether it's ProSim, whether it's Aspen. But for this inorganic chemistry, we have this was a new software for us, and we have reasonably good expertise we have built, and with the help of Dr. Johan Van Dijk from South Africa. Then we have other consultants. We have you must have heard the name of Dr. Chris Higman. Then Thierry Darde was the consultant for char filter handling. Then we went ahead and had a very good interaction with the Linde gasification team, air product team, and whatever suggestion we could get, we got the suggestions and tried to stabilize and improve our gasification operations, of course with the help of equipment supplier. This is again, I just summarize everything into this table form. Like we focus on technology, understand the feed quality is the key for key for our any plant stabilization. Unless until you understand your feedstock, it's very difficult to control. And as I told you that petcoke and fly ash was both product was a waste product for the other plants. So you need to completely understand that. Then we have done a lot of operational modification, and we have created that operability expertise through a lot of data analytics, billions and millions of data we have analyzed over the last 2 years, and we have created a good operating zone for our gasifier. Now, as we have everybody is talking about this going for, as even our honorable chairman has announced that target of net carbon zero by 35, well ahead of India target in 2070. So the entire team is working in this direction. So like we are working on the forefront, CO2 capture or sequestration, converting CO2 into the value-added chemicals, converting syngas to the chemicals. Or another step we are going in a big way is how can we use the biomass in current gasification. So we are going ahead with this taking biomass, torrefying it, and adding, maybe starting with the 5%, go up to 20% in the blending with that petcoke, so that we can use this as a green energy. And as I told you that once you in our chemical engineering days, we learned that from the chemical technology, once you have this syngas, CO and hydrogen, this is basically the building block for any chemical industries. Once you have those CO molecules, then you have hydrogen either from petcoke gasification or electrolyzers is a green hydrogen. Once you have the combination of CO and hydrogen, you can mix in any ratio, and you can create a complete set of product profile for your organization. And trust me, like we are evaluating all the options what we can use this syngas for chemical. And maybe in the next few years, you will hear a lot of things like what all chemicals we are going from this syngas to chemicals. And this is my last slide. As you must have heard in the last AGM, we have we have RIL has announced for this giga factories at Jamnagar. We are going ahead with the Dhirubhai Ambani Giga Energy Complex. We are going ahead with 4 major factories: photovoltaic module fabrication, energy storage batteries module. Then we have electrolyzer factory, and then fuel cell factories. And in the same direction, we are now. You must have heard about the announcement. We are going ahead and acquiring the desired skill sets in terms of we have acquired REC Solar Holding companies. We have acquired some companies in that electrolyzer space, so that we can build this capabilities and go ahead with this our green energy initiative. So this is what I had this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to all our presenters for the wonderful presentations made today. And I will actually quote one of the participants' message that has come in, and I'll show it on the stage. Yeah, I'm trying. Because it sums up what we've heard today. We sincerely appreciate the positive way of representing both the aspects of gasification, positive as well as negative. Both schools of thought are correct. समुद्र मंथन बहुत अच्छी तरह से हो रहा है. धन्यवाद. So I want to thank all our presenters today. There are challenges and there are issues that you have to deal with on the ground, but it is very heartening to hear optimism and hear ways by which you are looking to solve these problems with workable solutions, and look forward to a future where we will have more gasification projects. We will be able to use that gas in many ways to ensure that our environment is clean, our carbon footprint is lower. Thank you all for joining us and giving us the presentations. Thank you. It's been very heartening to see your presentations. Right now, we're going to slip into a break. It is an hour-long networking break. We'll be back at 2 o'clock, and we'll try to understand the impact of the hydrogen-based economy and sustainability when we come back. But use this time to catch up with your peers on this platform, and do visit the expo, where you will, of course, get a lot of solutions as a number of technology and solution providers do have their booths there. We'll see you again at 2 p.m.
Thank you. Thank you, Anisha.
Thank you.